I want to welcome you here on behalf of Mennonite Central Committee, one of the co-hosts of this afternoon's event, this afternoon of storytelling and remembering. My name is Brian Dick. I'm the National Migration and Resettlement Program Coordinator for Mennonite Central Committee, a very long title, but basically I have been working with the refugee program and working with it for about 17 years now, which is about 39% of the time of the program. So it's a substantial portion of the program. Working with people who have been forced to flee is a big part of Mennonite Central Committee's history. It's really a part of our DNA. But in 1979, it took a new and significant direction as people began to say that, yes, me and my community, I want to welcome refugees here. That has continued from that moment so that by now we have helped over 14,000 refugees resettle in Canada through Mennonite Central Committee. It's a significant part of who we are as an organization, and I think it's a significant part of many people who have worked in the organization, and I think many people in this room today. This afternoon, we're going to be talking about what that was like in the beginning. We're going to hear some stories, how this came together. And a big part of that, you'll be watching the documentary Passage to Freedom, and then after that, having a panel discussion about this documentary. This afternoon, as we hear these stories again, I want you to think about how your story has interacted with this, because it's important. I think all of our stories come together at this moment. I want us to think about how our stories come together in this story, but I also want us to think about other stories that have not been told. It's important for us to remember that in this place, we have been in a place that has been stewarded for generations by the Anishinaabe, the Cree, the Dakota, and the Métis people. And we need to remember that and honor the treaty that was a part of that and made this place together in that. We need to remember that our water comes from Shoal Lake 39 and 40, which is part of Treaty 3. We need to remember that the electricity that helps us live our lives is generated in the north in Treaty 5 territory. It's important to remember that because that is a part of the whole story. And if we do not tell that story, then the welcomes that we present to others they are not as genuine and they are not have the same level of integrity. As a co-host, Mennonite Central Committee is happy to be working with Canadian Mennonite University, the place that we are today. And I want to welcome Cheryl Pauls, who is the president of the institution, to say a few words. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian, and what a delight to be gathered with all of you this afternoon to celebrate a gem in our collective lives. A gem that's as much a movement as a policy agreement. And this gem goes on. That is the working together of the federal government and of MCC, a non-government agency of a voluntary public, the church in many denominational and congregational forms, and people who enter this country as refugees and become leading citizens. For Canadian Mennonite University, today's celebration connects in at least three direct ways. Firstly, through Dr. Phetsamay Stobbe, who is a CMU faculty member in conflict resolution studies and business, and with her exemplary work in exploring her own story by telling a bigger story and by drawing others into the Hearts of Freedom project. Her real-life story and research together becomes part of cross-sector cooperation, and we cherish these things. Secondly, through CMU's relationship with MCC, whose collective imagination is as practical, as entrepreneurial, as service-oriented, as faith-impulsed. And this combined sources what gives life to MCC's real-life agency. CMU is honored to connect with MCC and to bring together its inventiveness and service with education, nonviolent social change, the faith and life of the church, society at large, and government work. And also Thirdly, I'd say through stories that many of us recall personally, of families from Southeast Asia becoming part of Canadian life some 45 years ago. For me, it's the Pomasang family in Grantham Mennonite Brethren Church in St. Catharines. And of course, our stories extend beyond that moment. They extend back to the welcome of First Nations throughout Turtle Island to settlers over centuries. And they extend forward as acts of generous hospitality that continue to challenge and change the fabric of our communities. Congratulations to all involved in the Hearts of Freedom project. We honor you as we learn and celebrate today.
Hello, everyone. I'm so pleased to be here today and join this great event. My name is Maysoon Darwish. I'm Migration and Resettlement Coordinator at MCC Manitoba. I would like to introduce Daryl Lowen. I have a very interesting words actually about him, so bear with me. Daryl joined MCC Manitoba as Executive Director in 2016. For more than 20 years prior to that, he enjoyed wide-ranging professional, volunteer, and governance experience in Mennonite education, Manitoba's credit union, and various community and church organizations. As Executive Director of MCC Manitoba, Daryl leads a fantastic team of department directors in finance, social enterprise, local program, communications, and donor relations and human resources. Want to find him? Stop by MCC Manitoba's office and Sam's Place at 140 Bannatyne Avenue. He cannot stay away from the new location. Daryl appreciates the fine work carried out by MCC colleagues in Manitoba with Indigenous neighbors, church and community partners in abuse response or peace advocacy, thrift, material resources, and social enterprise, or, as tonight, in migration and resettlement of newcomers to Manitoba. Please welcome Daryl.
Thank you, Maysoon. Did that sound a little self-important? It might have, hey? I'm delighted to be along with you this afternoon and for all of us to have gathered in this way around these stories. As I think of the journey of Southeast Asian peoples, the voyages that ended in part on Canadian shores, and then the responses that took place thereafter. I'm thinking these are stories of at the intersection of desperation and courage. And it's the making of fantastic stories, but those stories come after great loss and sorrow. And I think we are in for some of those stories today with humility and with pride, I think both, awkwardly together. Humble in MCC to have inherited this work and received it from those, including in this room, who began it as MCC's work, but also among folks from Southeast Asian origin and roots who know these stories better than any of us. On Friday night, I was with two of my MCC Manitoba colleagues, Simone Hildebrand-Thiessen and Rebecca Jansen, and we facilitated a forced to flee simulation exercise at St. Margaret's Anglican Church, which Andrew Unger says is the fastest growing Mennonite church in Winnipeg. We had 35 teenagers, aged 12 to 17, the collective youth groups of this church. They vigorously engaged this simulation, which is written by friends and colleagues at Canadian Food Grains Bank, and which we have, for our own purposes, embellished a little bit when we can facilitate it in the province of Manitoba. These students engaged it vigorously. Where they felt they were being cheated, they attempted to push back and look for honesty from dishonest border guards and military checkpoint representatives, the roles we were playing. And they did so with energy and with a good spirit. And then we spent 30 minutes in debrief, not unlike we will to this afternoon. And the spirit came down to deep and thoughtful questions from teenagers who were captured by the simulation and the story, even in the abstract. So there are ready and willing hands, younger than our own, ready to carry on this work, and I'm grateful for it. Thank you for joining, and thank you for allowing MCC Manitoba to be part of this today.
That's really exciting to hear about that, Daryl, and that ongoing engagement with this. So how did this start? If you can pick many different points at many different places in the world how this started. But today, I think we want to think for a little bit about how this started in Mennonite Central Committee and how it started in Canada. Almost exactly 45 years ago, things were in the move. 45 years ago, in 1979, the MCC Canada's annual general meeting report book had a very short line about immigration, which I often quote, which said, MCC's involvement in immigration continues to be limited. That report book landed at the AGM meeting in Calgary, and the delegates there said that's not good enough. And so they said there are 4 things we want you as MCC to do. The first thing we want you to do is to remember our history. Many of us are people who have had to flee. Many of us are people who have welcomed others. That is a part of who we are. The second thing they said is help us as the MCCs, the 5 MCCs work together with the national MCC to coordinate our efforts. The third thing they said was to work with the denominations that are a part of MCC because they were already very interested in that. And the fourth thing they said to do was to negotiate an agreement with the Canadian government to take on a sponsorship program. That was in January, and then a few staff members at MCC got together and started working on that. And for government in lightning fast speed, 2 months later, 6 or 8 weeks later, the immigration minister was in Winnipeg signing an agreement. John Wheeler, who is with us today, was a part of that. He was the Associate Executive Secretary for MCC Canada. And we've asked John to talk a little bit about that and the agreement that has helped us for the last 45 years.
It's a pleasure to be here to talk about this, and I can assure you that it took just a little longer than the 2 months. The atmosphere during that time was such that every home, I think, in Canada, among the Mennonites anyway, knew all about the film that we're going to be seeing. The dramatic pictures, the horrible scenes of the war, first of all, and then later, of course, of the exodus, of these ships going on the seas, deeply embedded itself in the psyche or of who we are, because our people had also experienced some of that. My grandmother came to Canada. All of the members, the male members in the Bergman family, over 18, were killed. So that was a terrible shock to the family. So we understood something about that. And so with that said, the community was ready to do something, okay? Now, the method that was pioneered by MCC was quite different and was very influential, and I think pivotal, to making a change in Canadian immigration in the way Canada absorbed refugees. There hadn't been nothing like this. There had been a new act, and that was helpful. There were a lot of steps beforehand, but it sort of stalled. And then when we saw those pictures and the churches got together, and we went to Ottawa on a number of occasions, the churches met and discussed this, and the final discussion that was, again, a very important moment in the history was when we met with Flora MacDonald, who is the Minister of Immigration. Prior to that, however, in MCC itself, we had been deeply troubled about what should we do. It started at least a year and a half before that signing, at least a year and a half. And we were on trips. We went to Asia on a delegation, on one delegation. We went there, stopped, and we stopped in Vietnam, asking the government, why are you doing this? It's not good for your reputation, allowing all these people to go. They were happy to see them go, some of them. They weren't worried about that. These people had been in camps, as you will see on the film, re-education camps, some tortured, a lot of fear. But the result of that war was not just in Vietnam. It hit the surrounding countries also, Laos, Cambodia. And so when the people came out there, they just flooded out there. And we said, well, we have to go and see. On one of the trips, early trips, I know we assigned Vera Isaac. I don't know if she's here today, but she was finishing her job in Bangladesh, which had also experienced a huge change. You may remember that before Bangladesh was there, it was Pakistan, East Pakistan. There were 10 million refugees that walked across the borders at that time. Horrible. And the slaughter was great there too. When MCC came in there, they created a program. Now, Vera was heading that for a short while, and when she was finished, we said, Vera, go and look at the camps. And so she was there, there was another person there, and they surveyed and had their feelings. Now, all of this came at a time when there was an embargo against U.S. involvement. They were the old enemy, and so they were not able to really relate to the Vietnamese and so on. So Canada took a very forward step in this, very important, because that's where we went, and then we saw all this mess. This is the background. And when I remember when I was visiting the camps, and we also visited all the Canadian immigration posts in Cambodia, not in Cambodia, in Thailand, in Phnom Penh, in Malaysia, in Singapore, in Hong Kong, asking, what do you think the Canadians should do? And they said, get them out. At the same time, the Thai government was getting very nervous because the people from Cambodia who had gone through the Pol Pot era of the killing, as you will remember, the killing fields, some of you will remember, spread into the camps of Thailand. They were overloaded. 500,000, 500,000 refugees in these camps. They wanted to push them back. Only very few were leaving, some to Europe. And we thought, well, what can we do? And I remember flying or driving across the prairies at one stage, and I thought, what a vast country we have, unpopulated. We should take our share. Well, what's our share? Well, why not 10%? That's about 50,000. And when I came back, I was interviewed by Maclean's, which didn't hurt the cause. And they asked me, what do you think? And I said, well, we should take about 50,000. We can do that. We went to the government and we told them we were ready to absorb all the costs of these refugees, including all the finances. And if there is any problem, we will back it up. We will take full responsibility. And that struck a chord. But there was also a condition. The condition was that these should be above the quota, not counted in as Canadians' quota, which is always limited. And they agreed to that. And so we went back home, and we were struggling with trying to come to grips with how we were going to write this program. So we drafted one. A lot of back and forth, a lot of arguing, a lot of disagreement, and a lot of agreement. And we managed to get it together. We also had a little problem with our brothers in the States. They were not entirely sure that we should be doing this. But there was the overwhelming support did come from them. But it wasn't without a lot of headaches, to say it. So when we finally met with Flora MacDonald, we asked them, what is the government ready to do? Well, they started with about 5,000, I think, 4,000 or 5,000. Then they upped it to 8. And then I think we're going to say 14,000. And then we said, we're suggesting 50,000. Oh. And you know, Flora MacDonald was entirely in favor of it, although she didn't tell us. Just very shortly afterwards, there was this announcement that Canada would be open to settling 50,000. No, we wouldn't. Mennonites wouldn't. The Mennonites thought, we know our constituency. We had the word from our people. There were a lot of board meetings or executive meetings, and they said, arguing back and forth, how are we going to do this? And finally, they said, just do something. And that's what we did. So we formed this draft agreement, appointed Bill Jansen on the MCC's part to work with the government. And yeah, I'm going a little too long, maybe. The government appointed their representative, Gordon Barnett, pardon me, and they drafted it. And while they were drafting it, Bill would call, can we say this? Yes. Should we say this? No. I mean, there was a lot of back and forth. And finally, we got it together. And when we brought it to the executive committee, they agreed. And that's when the signing came. Now, basically, I want to talk just a little bit about the significance of this. Well, the significance of this is that this was the first time this kind of an agreement was reached. Private sponsorship, the constituency taking the role, full responsibility, got the government off the hook. Some big churches said, hey, you're making a bad mistake. The government is supposed to do that. Why are you getting into that? But it didn't take very long. And as soon as we had signed it, we got all kind of invitations how to do this from other churches. And eventually everybody agreed. Okay? So that was a very important consequence of what we did. I think most important in the significance of this undertaking was that the refugees started coming. That was it. And they came, and they came. We had no quota, the Mennonite Central Committee. We said that will be dependent on the constituency, on the churches. And, you know, MCC belonged to the churches. the MCC, as Brian has already said, gave responsibility to the provincial groups to look after this. And the constituency groups did the same thing. They loaded it down on the churches. And the churches basically did it. And when they all came, they always came already approved by the churches. That's how it worked. So MCC became an enabler. Staff interacted with government and found that there were a lot of people who had gone way beyond their authorized instructions, basically. They took liberty. Instead of an 8-page application form, they put it down to one page. Fantastic. And I already said, we discovered many unsung heroes in the government. They were really helping, including Joe Clark at that time. So that was basically what we left. I should also say that there was, on one occasion much later, the government acclaimed this and thought this was a wonderful thing that Canada was doing. And the UNHCR was going to award a medal, the Nansen Medal, to MCC. We debated that a bit, and we said, no, let's not take credit for that. That's bad publicity, and it's bad for everybody. So we said, give it to Canada. No, that isn't mentioned in official papers, but that's exactly what happened. So we don't want to be proud. We want to be humble about this. And I will say a few more things maybe when we have this question period. We want to thank God because He was the one who answered prayers. Individually, it took leadership, but it took the constituency, both. We cannot be led by the government, their regulations. We have to get ahead of them. It's very important. We have to obey. We're limited, but the Lord is greater than all these other powers. Let's not forget that. Thank you.
I would like now to introduce Dr. Stephanie Phetsamay Stobbe. Dr. Stephanie is a professor in conflict resolution studies and business at Canadian Mennonite University. She is a leading expert on Southeast Asian dispute resolution processes and has conducted conflict resolution and peace-building workshops around the world, including in Laos, Myanmar, and Thailand, with political leaders, NGOs, and civil societies as an active educator, trainer, and alternative dispute resolution, ADR, practitioner. She has worked and conducted research in Canada, United States, South America, Europe, India, and Asia. Stephanie has also served on the ADR Institute of Manitoba and ADR Institute of Canada borders, on the American Bar Association team of experts advising the United Nations Development Program, and as a visiting professor researcher at the Matsunaga Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution at the University of Hawaii. She was an expert advisory board member of Asia Pacific Refugee Studies at Auckland University in New Zealand, is currently a fellow of McLagan College at York University and president of Canadian Association of Refugees and Forced Migration Studies. Stephanie serves as a Lexington series book editor for conflict resolution and peace building in Asia. Stephanie is one of the principal researchers for the Hearts of Freedom, HOF, National Refugee Oral History Project, and is the creator and curator of the museum exhibition HEOF, Stories of Southeast Asian Refugees, that is traveling across Canada. Dr. Stephanie, please.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and it's great to see all of our friends here tonight from the Mennonite communities, Laotian, Vietnamese, and Cambodian communities. So thank you so much for coming. I would like to begin with a big thank you to Mennonite Central Committee for this celebration of its 45th anniversary of signing the first master agreement with the federal government to privately sponsor refugees, and featuring the screening of the Hearts of Freedom film, Passage to Freedom. A special thanks to Brian, Maysoon, Joanna, Aaron, Nikki, Joni, Valerie, Michael, and others. I'm also grateful for the support of Dr. Cheryl Pauls, Kara Clausen, and others at CMU who are involved in hosting the event in this beautiful place. Also, a special thank you to my grad students, Shane, Cassie, Mibab, and Taewuk, who have been helping me with these various events in Manitoba. And just to add to what John mentioned earlier, Canada between 1979 and 1980 resettled 60,049 refugees from Southeast Asia. That was unprecedented. And with those numbers, I think John mentioned, Flora MacDonald, who was the Secretary of State, and Ron Atke, the Minister of Employment and Immigration, at that time looked at that number. And Flora went to the UN convention and basically told the world that Canada was going to resettle 50,000 Indo-Chinese refugees. And she challenged the other countries in the world to do the same. So that was just a historic moment. And so with the signing of the MCC Master Agreement with the federal government, this again is a historic moment in Canada's immigration history. I was just looking again at Larry Kaler's report that showed Canada resettled a total of 3,283 refugees by the end of 1980. And that Manitoba sponsored 1,094 refugees. That's 1/3 of Canada's total. So Manitoba is a very special province in terms of assisting refugees. And by the end of that year, MCC would eventually sponsor 4,000 plus refugees. So this is a great achievement. And so the Hearts of Freedom project began with the invitation from the Vietnamese community to help document their stories of settlement and settlement in Canada. Soon afterwards, the Laotian and Cambodians joined the project. All three countries were greatly affected by the Vietnam War, the Laos Secret War, and the Cambodian genocide. Researchers from Carleton University, Dr. Colleen Lundy and Alan Moskovich, from the Canadian Immigration Historical Society, Michael Malloy and Peter Dushinsky, and myself from Canadian Mennonite University, began the task of conducting the largest and most comprehensive research on Southeast Asian refugees in Canada, funded by Canadian Heritage, IRCC, and DeFehr Foundation. Through our local teams, many of whom were from the three ethnic communities, we conducted 173 interviews in 5 languages: English, French, Vietnamese, Laotian, and Khmer, depending on the participants' preference. They told us amazing stories and gave us deep insights into their experiences, ones best told in the language they were most comfortable in. The interviews took place across Canada, from Vancouver to Halifax, between 2019 and 2021. The majority of the interviews were of former refugees, but there were a few from government personnel and sponsors, including former Prime Minister Joe Clark, former Minister of Employment and Immigration Lord Axworthy, Operation Lifeline's Howard Edelman, MCC's William Jansen, and John Wheeler, among others. The results of these interviews have helped us to develop the Hearts of Freedom website, developed by Mondi Lim, who is here today with us from Ottawa, a curriculum for high school and university students, a book, and a documentary film. In addition to these, working with the Hearts of Freedom Exhibition Committee, I created and curated a traveling museum exhibition called Hearts of Freedom, Stories of Southeast Asian Refugees, that is traveling across Canada to different national and local museums, universities, institutions, and organizations in the 10 cities where we conducted interviews. The exhibition was launched at the Canadian Museum of History in Gatineau, Quebec, and is currently featured at Manitoba Museum until April 7th, before it continues its tour to Edmonton. And this last week, I received confirmation that the exhibition will also be hosted at the Senate of Canada in Ottawa. Along with the exhibition tour, each venue will also have a screening of our documentary film that you will see in a few minutes. The tour is made possible in part by SSHRC and private donors. Let me briefly describe the film for you. Passage to Freedom features powerful oral histories of Southeast Asian refugees that made the dangerous journey from Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam to Canada. The film effectively weaves archival clips of news stories, wartime footage, and interviews with former refugees and Canadian immigration officials. Canada resettled over 210,000 Southeast Asian refugees between 1975 and 1997, making it the longest and the largest resettlement of non-European refugees to Canada. This really changed the face of Canada. The Canadian response to the refugee crisis was recognized internationally, as John mentioned, with the UNHCR Nansen Medal in 1986. The 50-minute film delves into the journey of the refugees' integration into the fabric of Canadian life and highlights the contributions of this first generation and their descendants. The Passage to Freedom documentary film is available in both English and French versions. We will watch the English versions tonight. And please be advised that this film addresses topics which could be disturbing to some visitors and may trigger painful memories. Some parents might feel it inappropriate for younger children. Feel free to leave Marpet comments as needed and come back for the Q&A. So now we will watch the film. I hope you found it as powerful and moving as I do every time I watch this film. Now we have some time for a Q&A where the audience can ask questions of the panelists regarding the project, film, experiences of settlement and resettlement, experiences of sponsoring. And before that, I would like to invite our panelists to come forward and sit on these chairs here with me, and then I will introduce you. And then we will have a Q&A. And so, yeah, please come forward. So Sheila, Dumpit, John, if you can come and join me. Yeah. Great. Thank you. So right beside me here is Sheila Petzold. She is a former CBC television producer who went on to become an independent documentary filmmaker and communication consultant. Her 22 years of experience as an executive producer of CBC and 12 years as an independent producer for Teleworks Productions, along with the extensive experience in writing, creative consulting, and producing documentaries, make her a valuable partner for our Hearts of Freedom documentary film. Sheila is the producer of Passage to Freedom. We're so glad that she was able to come here from Ottawa to be with us. And then to the right of Sheila is Mr. Dumpit Pentavong, who swam across the Mekong River to Thailand to seek asylum. He arrived in Manitoba in 1979 as a single man who was engaged to a young Lao woman whose family resettled in Vancouver and were sponsored by the Mennonite church there. The Mennonites in Vancouver connected Dumpit to MacGyver MB Church in Winnipeg. The church organized his wedding to his future wife, and they remained connected to the church for a number of years. He was one of the founders of the Lao Association in Winnipeg. In Canada, he worked at Kitchencraft. And you were already introduced to Mr. John Wheeler. We had the pleasure of interviewing John for our Hearts of Freedom project. He came to the session with a beautiful, organized scrapbook of materials and photos during his time in Southeast Asia. So thank you, Betty, for putting the scrapbook together. And I will be on the panel as well. So there is a microphone here on this side. If you have a question, if you can come forward, and if you can state your name and who the question is for, and briefly ask your question. Or I have a grad student, Tae Wook, who is here, and he has a mic as well. So if you would prefer, you can just raise your hand, and he can come over with a microphone so you can ask your question. So please come forward or raise your hand if you have any questions for any of us or about the project. Okay, I see someone over there.
Please turn it on. By the way, my name is Thuy Nguyen. I am from Vietnam, and my family, one of the 100,000 Vietnamese people to escape the country, and we are both people. And I come to Canada like 40 years now, and this documentation exactly what I went through. And when I watch it, my heart palpitation. I feel like everything come back to me because I escaped by boat. And we have Thai pirate attack us 6 times. And they broke the machine, the motor, and they let the boat flow with the water, with the wind. And we pray to survive. At that time, my son only 2 months old, and my daughter only 3 years old. And we cannot stay. We have to escape. Because for us, the word freedom is so big. And I want to use this opportunity to thank you, Canada. I don't know how much I can say to thank you enough. We really appreciate Canada to accept us with open arms. And we really thank you, the people who work in the committee to help us to come to Canada. If Canada don't help me, now I'm not here. I think maybe I traveled in the ocean with the fish. And for you, you know what? I come here for 40 years. My dream when I come to Canada, I wish somebody will do the documentation about the Southeast Asia. So the next generation, they understand and know what the parents went through for freedom. And nobody do it. And my English second language, I'm not capable to do it. So I said, oh my God, my dream one day. And Kim, she introduced me. She said, Thuy, come to the workshop to meet with the people about 3 weeks ago. I'm so happy to come. And I met her. And now I see the movie. Every time come back to my mind, I sat over there, my heart palpitate. And I said, oh my God, how much the people went through. And I went through the same thing. And when I come to Canada, I didn't speak English. Even in Vietnam, I learned English in high school in French. But we never have conversation. So for me, 6 months, I come to Canada with the paper and pencil. When the people talk to me, I write on the pencil, I say, this answer. Because I cannot speak at all. And I have 2 children. And my focusing is that how to raise my children successful and have a good education. Because in here, a lot of opportunity. Why not? And end up, and I dream about myself. I have to say, one day I will go back to university. So, you know what? I look after my children, and now my son here, mechanical engineer. And my daughter, she a teacher high school. And I said, when they finish, I go back to university. And when I go 50 years old, both of them graduate and have a job. I told my husband, now my turn. I went back to university, I got the Bachelor of Nursing degree when I was 50. And you know what? I tell you how much I'm proud of about me. I'm proud to say I'm a Canadian Vietnamese, and I am successful in Canada because Canada government opened the arm and welcomed me. I really appreciate that. And I worked for 11 years. I prefer to work with the elderly because when I work at university, the own population increased. And somebody have to look after them. I said, I want to work with them. So I worked at Riverview for 11 years. I look after elderly. I love them so much because every day, some of them on the wheelchair, nobody talk to them. They in pain. They cannot talk. They don't remember everything. Somebody there for them. And I, the one to be there and do everything for them. So I worked for 11 years at Riverview Health Center. I'm so proud about myself. Like every day I come home, on the way I said, oh, today I do the good job. I help somebody. And sometimes I work evening shift. I come home. If the patient sick and I work there to look after, but I don't know her condition, I cannot sleep. 1 a.m. I woke up, I phoned to the hospital and said, how is she right now? Because you work in the healthcare, you work from your heart, the bottom of your heart. And today I say, thank you. The government, the Canadian people, the people in the community, openly very big to welcome on the immigrant. And we come here, we want to focus and be the good people. And today, I believe I am the good people. By the way, give me opportunity to hug her. She is my angel. I'm so happy, and I saw you about 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago, and I said, oh my God, I have to come up to say thank you, but I didn't have opportunity because you're so busy. And I said, okay, I wait for opportunity. And when I sit over there, I watch the film, I said, the film stop, I come up. I don't want to lose my opportunity anymore. First of all, I have to thank you, the government. Secondly, I have to thank you. Because my children, I always share with them about how lucky they are to live in Canada. A lot of opportunity. If you put commitment, you focus, you can do anything. And you know what? The Canadian people, very, very nice. When I work at university, my English second language, and I'm the oldest one in my classroom. And for nursing, terminology, everything difficult. All the instructors support me. They spend time after the class to help me to go through. And today I'm successful because of my teacher too. Not because me have ability, but opportunity for me to have the people to help me out. Oh, that's all I said because I talk a lot, even my English second language. I can talk forever. So I told my friend, I come there, talk in 5 minutes. But now I think I talk more than 15. Okay, so I just want to come to hug you.
Thank you.
My angel. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
And I want congratulations.
Thank you.
This is documentation, exactly what the Vietnamese went through. And I don't speak on behalf of Laos or Cambodia because I don't know. But whatever information here, we went through like that. We went through exactly like that. I sit over there, my heart, boom, 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 boom. I said, okay, calm down, don't be so fast. Okay, thank you. Do I speak English very well? You know what? My English, like I speak second language, but I speak very fast.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your story with us today. And I think that's what we wanted to do with this project. We want to be able to share our stories with other people and have other people share their stories with us. And that's a way of connecting with one another. And storytelling is so powerful, making that connection, developing and maintaining relationships. So thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to say thank you for this amazing documentary film. It is practical, historical for the Vietnamese or Cambodians. So it is amazing because sometimes when time is gone, we are forgotten. So this is practical documentary to remember it, especially as MCC also for 45 years history. So I'm also as a newcomer to Canada. I came 2006 with my wife, Mennonite, and that time they are 4. Now I have 6 children. Before 17 years. So when we come to Canada, we came through the governmental sponsorship. The government, he brought us from refugee. But we started with MCC, our church. That time it is very small church. Now our church is very big, more than 250 members. And we brought through MCC many people through MCC. So Brian, other all MCC employers, Mason, and others also, we are working with them. So I'm so glad for Canada, for MCC, their hard work. We are bringing people from the tough, from Sudan, from Eritrea, from Ethiopia, from Kenya, from Uganda. So this is a big opportunity. So, but I have a little bit small message for Brian and for Mason and for MCC sponsorship leaders, because now, as you know, in Eritrea, the persecution is as it is. There is a strong persecution in Eritrea. There is very, all the pastors are in prison. People are flee from the country. Most of them, they flee to Sudan. As you know, Sudan also last year, it is a very terrible war. Now all the Eritreans are escaped to Uganda, to Kenya, to Ethiopia. Now the life is very tough. Also, last 3 years, it is a strong war between Eritrea, the federal government of Ethiopia, between Tigray. Now people are the same like Vietnamese and Cambodians. They are passing through very difficult situation. Last month, I was in Uganda, in Ethiopia, because mission trip. So our people are passing through very difficult situation between life and death. So this is I'm passing to remind MCC to work hard to bring more people from the refugee campus. And I'm so very happy for Canada and for MCC work hard. Thank you for the time to share our heart. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for reminding us that there are many other conflicts around the world in Eritrea and other places, and that we need to continue to be welcoming and continue to assist refugees as much as we can here. And I know the UNHCR Global Trends 2023, all the countries who do resettlement last year in 2023 resettled less than 60,000 refugees. And during this time, the Southeast Asian refugee crisis, 1979 to 1980, we resettled 60,049 refugees. So it's something that we really need to think about. So thank you for reminding us of all the different conflicts. Okay, and Misun?
Thank you. My question is to Sheila, actually. The film is really well done, I have to say, great. But you succeeded in conveying the emotions, the pain, the agony, the resemblance that we are dealing with now, even with other stories for refugees around the world. How were you able to process the pain when you were interviewing those refugees, hearing the stories? What did you feel? and what is your advice to all of us when we hear these stories? And what is also your recommendation when we really find ourselves investing in these stories? And I'm saying this, I've been through a lot as a former refugee myself, but I like to hear from you as a film producer and as a, I believe, born Canadian. Thank you.
That's, see, I'm going to start to cry. And because I often do, I have to say that this is one of the hardest films I've ever worked on. There were times when I just had to go lie down and cry because these stories were just so sad. They affected me deeply. And I'm sure, you know, and I think that one of the things that's really interesting through all of these screenings that we've done is that often people will come up, as this woman came up from Vietnam right after the film and said, you know, how much it affected her. People are often in tears. And I think that part of the process of this film is just letting the tears come and letting it out. But most importantly, it's acknowledging these stories, and they have to be acknowledged. And I think that's why doing work like this is so important, because it does allow people to recognize the trauma that they went through. And most importantly, let their children know. What's really surprising to me is that how many folks don't talk about this with their children. And what Mondi and I, Mondi's here, he's the webmaster, and he saw every single one of these stories on tape and put them up on the website. I didn't see them all in the process of creating this film. I saw many, but not them all. What he discovered too is that this was the first time that these folks had actually talked about their experience, expressed their, you know, what they'd gone through and so forth. And it struck us that, and they hadn't even told their children about it. This is an important story, and it's a really important story for the next generation to hear, because it's our story. And it's, I should say that this has made Canada and continues to make the country. Oh, I'm going to stop now. I'm getting it teary.
Hi, I really hate public speaking. I don't know if I should stand or whatever, but I did want to acknowledge, well, I want to say, oh yeah, okay. My family is from Hanoi originally, and what? Okay, I'm so sorry. Okay. Anyways, I did want to say thank you for this wonderful film, and there is I was born in Winnipeg, so there's a privilege of not having to see or go through any of that, but you do feel the trickle down, and it's like the weird habits that your parents have. I'm sure that happens in any generation, but this one is very particular because it comes with its particular trauma as like a whole nation. Anyways, and when you talk about that, these stories are not being passed down, I completely, yeah. And again, like, I don't often, no one ever talks about that. And I went to Vietnam in 2006 as like just hey, I'm gonna see what my family's from. Which was kind of scary because it's very painful. And my uncles were just like, oh, because they don't even acknowledge it either. And they still live there. Like, they still live in the city that was bombed out. You know, they still live they did live in the homes that they had lived in for generations. So it's really interesting. This is like, we got to move on. And I don't know. I don't know what to do with that information. I don't know how to why can't we pause and think about this and share? So I think this film is really important for, the generation that came 1980 and after, or like, you know, after the Vietnam War, after all this tragedy, to acknowledge what our families, our parents, our, you know, because like that's part of our story too. Okay, that's it.
Yes, thank you. The other day we were at Manitoba Museum and we did a screening there on the 1st. And before that, I was up at the exhibition area and walking around with Senator Mary Lou McPhedran. And this one young man came up and he's looking at the map of where all the people left and escaped from those countries. And he's like, oh, my dad is from Laos. And he pointed and he had no idea and that we had this exhibition there, and he wanted to know more about it and he was so interested. And so I asked him, I said, have you talked to your parents about this? And he said, no, his parents will not talk about their experiences in Laos, and so he knows nothing about it, but he's so interested that he's going through the exhibition. He's going to come back because the film is on a rolling basis right beside the exhibition in Festival Hall at Manitoba Museum. So he said he's going to come back and he's going to watch the film as well, because he himself is very interested. And so there's different responses. Like there are some families who will share their stories with their children, but I would say the majority of the people we interviewed did not share the stories with their families. And this was the first time that they were able to share their story with us. And they wanted to do that because they wanted to pass it down to the next generation, to their children, to their grandchildren, to let them know where they come from and their experiences. And so there's different responses, but I think it is important, right, to share some of these histories for the next generation.
If I could just add to that too, is my mic on? That I think the whole sponsorship program that the Mennonite community created, is something else that we really, really have to say thank you for and acknowledge. It was such a gift to many people, to our country, because the people who came here have really contributed so much. It's absolutely amazing how integrated into every thread of the fabric of Canadian society folks from this refugee situation have created for Canada. It's absolutely amazing. And it all began with this, I think in a lot of ways, with this sponsorship program which connected the rest of Canadians with other people that needed a home. I think that's the key here. And that helps us remember why doing this kind of work is so important. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to make this film, to be quite honest with you. And it's the kind of work that has to continue to go on today, as this gentleman has mentioned. So thank you.
This question will be for you too.
Okay.
But in 1979, the Winkler Mennonite Brethren Church started sponsoring some of the boat people that MCC was asking our churches to do. At that time, a young boy, 14 years old, he was extended family, but the families that came didn't have room to put him in their house. So they asked Marge and myself, we were married just about 1 year, if we would take in a 14-year-old young boy, Hip Bowie. And we did. It was a wonderful experience. His story lines up with the documentary. Just wondering, if I would like to access the documentary, how do I do that?
Okay, we were in discussions about all of this right now.
Okay.
We wanted the opportunity to show the film to communities themselves and on the ground, face to face with the communities across the country, and that's what we've been doing. And well, Stephanie has also been getting it shown at various conferences and universities and to academics so it can be incorporated into refugee studies and all those kinds of things. Very, very important work. We have a Canadian educational distributor, which means that schools and libraries can use this film. It fits perfectly into senior years of high school curriculum and also, I think, early first or second year university, some courses and so forth. So it is available to these institutions to purchase it or lease it for 3 years or whatever at a reasonable price. We're also talking about just making it available, and how do we do that? And at some point it'll just be posted on the website. We didn't have a lot of money to make this film, and so just the rights to the archival material, like that CBC footage and Getty images and all that sort of thing. We had a wonderful archival researcher, plus many people donated their photographs, and the foreign service workers also, had collections that they donated, and we had to go through and all that sort of thing. But the cost of the archival footage was pretty high, and we could only we could only pay for Canadian rights, essentially. And Canadian rights for education. That was our limitation. And so what we're hoping to do in the next year or sooner is collect some money so that we can get worldwide rights, and we can post that film on a website and anybody can take a look at it. So there's your answer for you. How's that?
Yeah, so if anyone's interested in contributing to that, please let me know.
That was my soft pitch.
Because we would like to be able to show it around the world, and right now we just have rights to it here in Canada. And we do want to show the film along with the exhibition through the 10 cities where we conducted interviews first, to bring it back to those communities, and then I think after that, we will try and make it available on the internet to everyone with an international license once we get the funding for that.
Sabaidi. Hello, my name is Katrina Lingsawat, and I'm a current student here at CMU, and my mother's family were refugees from Laos in the 1980s. And during this Q&A period, I've heard some back and forth about how important it is for stories to be passed down and for some of these histories to be turned into documentaries or written down and things like that. And as someone who is on the receiving end of those stories and trying to, I guess, encapsulate those family experiences and describe them to others, in the community, I guess my question is, what advice would you have for youth who are trying to equip themselves and prepare themselves for handling those really sensitive stories, and how do we also cope with the, the domino effects of some of the intergenerational trauma that has been caused by some of those experiences?
I mean, what I've been doing, I was a child who was very curious about my family story, and as a child I have different memories than my parents who were adults, and so I would constantly be asking them questions about our life in Laos, in refugee camp in Thailand, and when we first came to Canada, and I would write them down. I have also video recorded and audio recorded some of my conversations with my father, my mother, my aunts and uncles, just so that I have that, because I would like to write a story about our family one day. And so that's what I've been doing. And there are some questions that are very sensitive. And I know when we were conducting these interviews, the interviewees were amazing in terms of sharing their stories, and some of them shared a lot, and others shared a little bit, about their life. And then privately to me, they would tell me more, but I can't include those, right? Because those are not part of the original research. But there are still stories out there that they want to keep private, and that's okay as well. Right? And so what are you willing to share in public, and then what are you willing to keep for yourself and your family? So that's what I've been doing, with some of these stories. And of course, in our research, we always ask the participants, are you willing to then allow us to post your full interviews on our Hearts of Freedom website? So it's www.heartsoffreedom.org. And that website, and so Mondi Lim, who's standing there, he's our website designer, he's posted all of the interviews that people have agreed for us to post on the website. And you can actually go and watch the full interview from beginning to end in 5 different languages. And some of them are an hour long, some of them are 3 hours long. So depending on how much time you have. So then you can maybe go through those interviews and just to see what kinds of questions are being asked, what some of the responses are, and see how you might like to talk with your family about that. And again, to get everyone's permission in terms of sharing these stories. And I know with my own family, you know, some people are more willing to share, and then others are like, no, we don't want to talk about that aspect of our journey.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have? So she's asking that if she wants to talk to her parents about it, how should she go about doing that? So if your own children want to talk to you about this experience, how would you advise them?
So first of all, it's very happy to be here. And then my name is Dumpet, like as you know. And I have two children, right, and 6 grandkids. And then it's very hard for the parent who came in Canada for nothing. It's no English, no skill, no job. Just and then what in my heart, in my mind, just try to teach them, you know, and the way that the Canadian culture. But I know it's very hard because we have Lao culture that's very different. So it's not easy for every parent. So it's especially for me very hard because I don't know about the Canadian culture, and my kids, they grow up, they learn from the school, from the teacher. But for me it's very hard. It's still like I would say the old school. It's still that hard to change that, you know. That's what I say that.
Thank you very much.
And also I want to share my short story. And when I came in when I was in Laos, I was at the 20 years old. And then after I graduated secondary school, and then I escaped the country. Because I lived in the Laos communist regime for 3 years, and I see nothing changed, no future. They only talk the hard way. They try to take the people to do the hard work, and they look at you. If you not listen to them, follow them, they always point a finger to you. And then that's why that I cannot stay there. After 3 years, I learned a lot, and then I decided to escape from my country, 1978. And I crossed the Mekong River at the night time, but I was lucky, thanks God. And then no shoulder in the shore to shoot me. And then I tried to reach the destination, and halfway, and the Mekong River, very strong current, so it pushed me. I didn't make it, so I have to calm down. And suddenly, just the Thailand shoulder border, they come out and put the siren and capture me and put in the jail one night. And then that time I have no clothes, only only underwear. And then they bring me to the police station, and then they interview. And then the next day, as my dad picked me up, and we're heading to the Ubon camp. And then that time I met my wife, and now she was a sponsor with Mennonite Brethren Church in Sardis, BC. And then she came in Bangkok and Lumpini before me, so I decided to follow her. But my destination to go to the France with my family, and I changed my mind because my wife came in Canada. So because the reason I don't want to come to Canada because it's very cold. That's what I heard the rumor, you know. There's no sun, no that 6 months work, 6 months stay home, you know. And then I decided to follow my wife, and that time no English at all, just basic. So then I came in Canada in 1979 in October 31st. And then I landing in the Edmonton, in the army. And then I flew to the Edmonton to the Winnipeg. And then I'm not lucky. I got a government sponsor. On that time, the manpower picked me up, and then they bring me to the small apartment in the Kennedy Street in downtown. And then share with another 4 people in the 1 bedroom. So I have to live staying in the living room with another guy, the Cambodian. And then after that, they put me work under $3 per hour. And that time, I desperate to want to talk to my wife in Vancouver, BC, because I want to marry her. But how can I do that? I have no money. I work $3 per hour. And October and November, and then I came and flew here. And then I tried to contact her, but I have no way. So I thinking, okay, I called her sponsor, and they won't let my wife to come in Canada. Come to the Winnipeg. It's too cold here. So they want me to go Vancouver and marry her. I said, I have no money, no for the ticket for the plane. So they, okay. And now that time the Mennonite Church, British in the Studies, Braden in the Studies, BC, is Pastor Harry Hadibread. So he contacted to the Mennonite Braden Church at McIver Avenue. And then that time is my pastor is Alale Boone and Irene. So they talk about, okay, we're gonna make a wedding for you. They told me, and I was very happy. And then I said, and then I met one family, and Mr. William Martin and Mrs. Nellie Martin, and the whole church, a very nice people there. They helped me, and then I married in the McIver Church in the first Laosian and wedding, and in Winnipeg. So, and that time my guests only 6 Laosian people, and on the rest I remember the church of the McIver, and that everything was very nice wedding, and then I was very happy. And then after that they adopt me and my wife to the family, and then after that I went to the church for almost 10 years with the Sunday school. And then they guide me, they support me, they help me, and to get the job. And now today I am 2 children, 6 grandkids. They have a well education. Even myself, I didn't go to school at all. I just speak whatever. Sometimes broken English. Sometimes it's because I have to raise my 2 kids and my family with $3 and per hour. And then after that we continue, and then when the kids grow up, they stop go to church, and then I say, okay, your choice, whatever that. But I would say thanks God, there's Mennonite people in the McIver Church. They help me, my family, to be like now. I'm very, very happy. And also they told me, okay, wedding in the church at the Mennonite. I say, oh no, someone told me, the Mennonite church, no drink, no dance, no smoking. Or I say, no, I'm smoking, I'm drinking. Oh no. And then after that, we study and I change, no smoking. Okay, that's what I share. But I didn't prepare it on, but whatever come out. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Idun Pit, for sharing your story. And I know as government-sponsored refugees versus privately sponsored, it is known that the privately sponsored refugees have much more support than the government-sponsored refugees. And so it's really wonderful to have MCC sign the master agreement and to privately sponsor refugees. So I'm also conscious of the time because we do have a reception upstairs, and we've ordered Lao Thai food up there, and we would like you to join us for that. And maybe before that, I'll let John say something, and then we will go upstairs and enjoy the food, and you can have further conversations and ask any one of us further questions up there. But I will ask John to say a few words.
I will be short. This will be addressed to the Mennonites, in the sponsors and the churches and MCC and ourselves. And that is this. I think we've learned a great lesson. We were able to contribute, and there's a danger that we sort of sit down on our laurels and be happy about it. At the same time, I think this experience should prompt us to look at the world today, because there's exactly the same kind of challenges that face us today. Just think of Gaza. Huh? What are we doing? And I remember the order that the executive committee gave to us. Do something. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know. And the Lord showed us. I think we have to give that credit to the Lord. He showed us. We had a willing constituency. It takes a lot of hard work, very hard work, to get into that kind of a thinking, but I think we have to do it, because otherwise we will be satisfied with what we've done and miss what we have to do. Thank you very much.
Well said. So I think we can just go upstairs now, and please help yourself to the food and enjoy conversations with those around you. And if you have further questions, feel free to come up to us and ask them. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for coming and for making this a wonderful event.